Spine-chilling reflections. 5 haunted mirrors reveal sinister secrets and unexplained TRRs. Lisa's heart raced as she huddled in her small living room, the once comforting space now feeling like a suffocating chamber. Shadows flickered unnaturally along the walls, as if the ghosts of the past had moved in to share her burden. The kids had been restless, laughing one moment, then clenching at their throats, eyes wide with fear in the spaces beyond the mirror. What had she brought into her home? The antique mirror loomed ominously in the corner, its glass surface dark and swirling, a vortex pulling her deeper into dread. Its promise of revealing truths hidden by time gnawed at her. It wasn't just a reflection, it was a doorway into something far worse. Over the following days, the mirror showed her bright moments, stolen breaths of joy as her children giggled over dinner, but underneath, it was tinged with something darker. A day later, the laughter morphed into screechy echoes, desolate howls that echoed through the glass. She saw her kids in shadows, faces pale and contorted with terror, but when she reached out, they laughed just a few feet away. It was maddening. Without warning, they could feel eyes upon them, the neighborhood growing chillier each day, smiles replaced with murmurs. Neighbors became distant, their eyes darting away as if they were hiding something. Every cheerful wave turned into an assault of cold, the friendly facade eroding. The weight of every sideways glance felt like a dagger. Were they watching, waiting? Desperate for answers, she dove into local history, poring over dusty records and murky tales. The stories whispered of a shattered family, dark secrets wrapped in betrayal, and 5 mirrors fueled by sorrow. Each one had its doom, and now hers was among them. The longer she stared into the mirror, the more she felt entwined in the web of its history, every chilling detail pulling her further from reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The old woman at the edge of town had all the answers. Her eyes were wild, the knowledge behind them ancient and terrifying. As Lisa confronted her, the air thickened with tension, secrets brewing like a storm. "You don't understand what you're meddling with," the woman hissed, spilling words like poison. "This mirror doesn't just show reflections, it shows truths that some would kill to remain hidden." Lisa stumbled back, shock coursing through her. The truth might not only lie in the mirror. As her children grew more withdrawn, shadows flickered about, creeping closer. She felt the cold moisture of fear seep deep into her bones. Had the mirror awakened something sinister in her house? Now, standing before the mirror one last time, she prepared to confront whatever lay behind its surface. Her breath caught, stomach twisted, and the atmosphere crackled with tension. With a trembling hand, she reached out towards the glass. Maybe, just maybe, she would find peace. Or would it reveal something far worse? As the reflection rippled, whispers echoed around her. And deep in the horror of her own home, she wondered what truly terrified her. What shadows lurked beyond the glass, or was it even closer, within her own heart? The moment Lisa's fingers grazed the cold surface, a jolt surged through her. The glass shimmered and warped. Darkness flared, swallowing the room. Screams echoed from the mirror, familiar yet twisted. It was her children's laughter turned sinister. The shadows danced, swirling like a dark vortex, and for a brief second, she saw their faces, hollowed eyes and twisted mouths, pleading and grotesque. A panic gripped her throat as she stumbled back, shaking her head in disbelief. This couldn't be her kids. They were just outside, safe, right? Yet within the mirror, their cries grew desperate, each shriek clawing at her sanity. She blinked, and the scene shifted. A flicker of the past splashed across the glass of family, laughter, warmth, but then betrayal spilled like ink, drowning the joy in a deluge of anguish. Lisa dashed away from the mirror, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears. She had to find her children. They were out there, playing in the yard, safe from this cursed glass. But as she rushed toward the front door, the vibrations of her frantic steps gave way to a hollow stillness. The moment she crossed the threshold, she froze. Her yard was a different world. The vibrant colors had muted, drained of life. Grass lay in lifeless clumps, and the trees loomed like hunched figures, whispering secrets. Where were her children? Lisa's breath quickened, the cold grip of fear wrapping around her chest. "Mommy!" A voice rang out, pure and innocent, but it came from behind her. She spun around. There they were, her children standing before the mirror, their faces turned toward the glass, entranced. "No! Come here," she screamed, panic surging as they stayed rooted, faces blank. As if in a trance, they stretched their small hands toward the mirror. Lisa's heart thundered wildly as she charged forward, the ground seeming to quake beneath her. She reached them just in time, yanking them away. But the moment they turned, their eyes were not the eyes she remembered. Those innocent gazes were filled with shadows, glimmers of something lurking beneath. They blinked as if awakening from a deep slumber, confusion knitting their brows. "Mommy, where were we?" the younger one asked, but his voice was eerie, too calm. Lisa's heart sank. What had just happened? "We were just playing, right? You weren't near the mirror, were you?" she whispered, casting wary glances toward the cursed object. It pulsed softly, beckoning, as though aware of the chaos it wrought. "I wanted to see the pretty colors." Her daughter chimed in, blissfully unaware of the dark undertones. Lisa felt nausea swirl in her stomach. The children had not just been playing, they had been lured. Desperate, she gathered them into a tight embrace. But cold chills worked their way in, shadows slithering closer. "We need to leave here, we need to." At that moment, the mirror cracked. A single jagged line sliced through the glass, and from within, a dark figure emerged, its features obscured by swirling shadows. It loomed large, casting an ominous presence over their small family. Lisa's breath hitched, a primal fear coursing through her veins. She backed away, clutching her children, the weight of the mirror pressing down upon her like stone. They were trembling, and she felt them slip closer against her. The figure reached for them, fingers elongated into grotesque claws. "You cannot hide from the truths," it rasped, voice low and echoing like thunder. With newfound desperation, Lisa grabbed their hands and sprinted towards the house, heart racing. They had to get away, but where could they go? The mirror showed no mercy and the figure was relentless. As they fled to the safety of the house, she realized the truth: the mirror was only part of it. Something far worse dwelled within her home, within her own heart. And as darkness wrapped around them, she knew she had to confront whatever this was, a chilling revelation dawning upon her. What had she unleashed? The door slammed shut behind them, and the whispers intensified, surrounding them, echoing through the house. Shadows lingered in every corner, waiting. What was next? The reflection would not relent. What horrors awaited them as they confronted the abyss within? The whispers curled through the darkened hallway like tendrils of smoke, wrapping around Lisa and her children. The shadows flickered, casting warped silhouettes against the walls. She pressed her back against the door, chest heaving, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Stay close," she whispered, glancing at her kids, who clung to her side. Their wide eyes reflected a mixture of fear and confusion. "Mommy, what is happening?" her daughter whimpered, clutching her brother's arm. Lisa didn't know how to answer. Just stay with me," she said, forcing herself to sound calm. They began to move away from the door, every creak of the floorboards underfoot feeling like a warning. The mirror loomed behind them, a silent sentinel filled with dread, its surface pulsing slowly, almost as if it were breathing. Lisa shuddered. She had to make sure they wouldn't get too close again. What had it done to them? Suddenly, a low hum rose from within the walls, vibrating through the air, making her teeth rattle. It was unsettling, an echo of something just out of reach. "We need to go upstairs," Lisa urged, nodding toward the staircase, which spiraled into deeper shadow. "Why?" her son asked, his voice trembling despite his brave facade. "Because if we don't, it'll find us," she said, her breath hitching. Moving on instinct rather than thought, she turned and urged the children up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. The upstairs landing was even darker. As they pressed on, the air grew thick, suffocating. Lisa could barely see, but she knew they had to get to the bedroom. There, she thought, they could barricade themselves. "Mommy, the shadows are moving," her daughter whimpered, eyes darting everywhere at once. "Hush!" Lisa commanded, panic-stricken. Keep your eyes on me." They reached the bedroom door and she pushed inside, trying to stave off the rising tide of fear. The room had a single window, shadowy curtains billowing like ghostly hands beckoning for entry. She slammed the door shut and turned the lock, yet even as she did, the shadow seeped through the cracks, hungry and restless. "Mommy, I'm scared," her son said, voice cracking. I know," she breathed, holding them tight. "But I won't let anything happen to you." But as she stood there, darkness pressed in from all sides. Shadows slithered across the floor, creeping closer, encircling them. Lisa felt stinging cold on her skin, that unmistakable presence again, inching ever closer. The soft murmurs became clearer, forming words that scraped against her mind like nails on a chalkboard. "Mommy, mommy." They echoed in a twisted symphony, her children's voices integrated with something vile, something that wouldn't her children at all. Lisa felt bile rise in her throat. This was the other side of the mirror. What was she facing? Was this the price for neglecting the past? With shaking hands, she rummaged through the bedside drawer, praying for something, anything that could aid them. Her fingers grazed something rough, a relic from a time long forgotten, a family photo, tattered and yellowed. She couldn't resist. She turned it over, and a strange warmth filled her. There they were, happy smiles frozen in time. Without thinking, she pressed it against the mirror, hoping it would connect the two realms. "Remember us," she shouted, but as she did, the glass began to shift, dark ripples cascading through its surface. The shadows clambered closer, and Lisa realized the image was warping, too, the memories bleeding into something grotesque. "Mommy!" one of her children screamed. Outside, the wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows. The door trembled under a sudden force, as if something was trying to break in. That instant, the mirror fractured more, a web of darkness erupting, spilling shadow like ink into the room. Lisa stumbled back, heart racing, as the figure materialized, gliding swiftly. It had no face, but she could feel its eyes boring into her. "Face your truths," it hissed, and the room spun with despair. The children clutched at her side, terror palpable in the air. The walls seemed to breathe, pulling closer as the impossible grew real. She had to confront this being, this nightmare. But as she stepped forward, something shattered within her, a memory, a past she thought she could outrun. The fragment revealed itself, bright and warm yet tainted, beckoning for acknowledgement. What was she about to discover? Was this the abyss she had long buried, rising to claim her at last? The specter stretched out its fingers, and Lisa felt the darkness cling to her dreams as the ground beneath her trembled with a deafening crash. The truth began to unravel around her. Would she have the strength to face it? The air thickened as an unseen weight bore down on them. Lisa's breath quickened, punctuated by the distant sound of shattering glass echoing in her ears. The figure loomed larger with each thrum of dread, a dark promise wrapped in the stench of rot and despair. It advanced, and the shadows rippled like living things, crawling in relentless pursuit. "Open your eyes, Lisa," it murmured, its voice a distorted blend of her children's cries and something far worse. The room twisted around her, the furnishings warping and sprouting shadows that grasped like gnarled hands reaching out from the dark. For a moment, she wavered, caught between the reality she fought to protect and the nightmare that sought to consume her. "Stay close," she shouted, though she felt her resolve crumbling. Lisa turned around to her children, their small forms trembling like candle flames in a gust. They were her heart, her pulse, but what remnants of their innocence remained? "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore," her daughter cried, her voice cracking and echoing oddly in the tightening air. "Neither do I," Lisa spat back, her fear igniting. "But we have to fight." The mirror's surface pulsed wildly, the glass now a window into tormented recollections of laughter that twisted into screams. Desperate, Lisa pulled her children closer, clawing at her own dread-draped heart for the strength she so desperately needed. With a sudden clarity, she stepped forward, intent on confronting the formless horror that threatened to tear them apart. "Reveal yourself," she demanded, her voice growing stronger despite her trembling hands. "Show me what you're hiding." The shadows recoiled, shrinking slightly as if stunned by her defiance. The figure hesitated, its faceless presence wavering like the flame of a candle about to go out. Lisa took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage she had. You can't take us. We're stronger than you. In response, the creature surged forward, but this time, she slammed the family photo against the mirror again. Look! She cried out desperately, pushing the image toward the darkness. Remember who you were. The chilling words resonated through the air, as bright memories flashed across the mirror's surface, battling the embers of fear that filled the room. Lisa's heart raced. Could this work? Would the love they felt be enough to fend off the shadows? Suddenly, without warning, the figure lunged. Shadows howled, a cacophony of voices screaming in unison, "You cannot change the past. You cannot escape." The air crackled with energy, cold and hostile, freezing every drop of warmth in her veins. Lisa felt her children's arms tighten around her waist, their trust infusing her with even greater resolve. "We will not be your prisoners," she shouted, feeling the power of the unseen shadow pushing against her. "We are still here. We will not vanish into your darkness." With that declaration, the mirror exploded outward in a shower of shards, sharp and deadly. The fragments sliced through the heavy tension, scattering moments of joy and pain into chaotic display pictures of parties, birthdays, unfinished dreams, all dancing in the fragments of glass like memories seeking solace. But even as she felt a glimmer of hope, the specter shook its head, the darkness shifting ominously. "You cannot win," it hissed, and the weight of despair crashed upon them like a tsunami. And then she saw a small pathway opening up through the chaos, a flicker of light beckoning. "Mommy, please." Her son cried out, his small voice barely cutting through the overwhelming noise. "Hold on," she cried, gathering the children tightly. "This way." Lisa pushed forward, heart pounding as they stumbled toward the light. Shadows clawed at her heels, grasping and shrieking in anguish. She felt their chill closing in, but they pressed on, driving forward through the maze of their fears. Just as they reached the edge of the light, a powerful force pulled her back, dragging her down. With a scream, she fought against it, trying to hold on to her children. But it felt like she was being ripped apart, fraying at the edges of her very soul. "Don't let go!" she screeched, her eyes wide with terror. The darkness howled, drowning her voice as the shadows closed in again, wrapping her in a blanket of despair. She was losing them, losing herself. Had her confrontation only awakened the shadows? Was this the end they had run from all along? In that moment, just as panic threatened to consume her, she caught a flash of something sparkling in the midst of chaos. A reflection. But what did it mean? The final pieces of her shattered past began to whirl around her. With the last remnants of her strength, she dove towards the glimmer. What truth lay in its depths? Would it lead to their salvation or the final unraveling of their fragile existence? Light burst into the void like a scream piercing the darkness. Lisa, drawn toward that flicker of hope, propelled herself forward. She could feel her children's weight against her, their small bodies trembling, yet holding onto her as if she were their lifeline. The whispers of shadows lingered, scratching at her ears, but she focused on the light and anchor amidst the turmoil. In fleeting moments, she thought she recognized the glowing figures formed in that brightness, echoes of happier times. A family gathered around a birthday cake, laughter filling the room. For a heartbeat, it felt real, but then the shadows clawed back. "We are coming for you," they croaked as if mocking her fleeting joy. "No!" she yelled. "You won't take them." She pressed her eyes tightly shut, even as memories of her children shattered around her like fine glass. When she opened them again, she found herself standing on a precipice, the light stretching out before her but cloaked by darkness lurking just behind in front of her. The glimmer revealed a jagged path leading into an unfamiliar hall. Wall mirrors, cracked and splintered, lined each side a gallery of torment. Each mirror promised a view into horrors past, reflections of fear and regret. She felt drawn to them, compelled to look. Curiosity mingled with dread. "Mommy, can we go home?" Her son's whisper sliced through the heavy silence. The small faith in his voice made her heart clench. Lisa felt the pull of the mirrors as they exhaled tortured memories, both her own and those that belonged to the figure pursuing them. "Just breathe, my loves. One step at a time." The words poured from her instinctively, her protective instincts surging. They moved hesitantly forward, the oppressive shadows trailing behind, licking at their heels like hungry beasts. As they passed the first mirror, a distorted reflection stared back at them. Lisa's face, warped in despair, showed the cracks of hopelessness snaking down her cheeks. But her precious children were free from the dark taint. They gleamed with innocence, untouched by the dread that choked Lisa. Then they heard it. A soft, slithering whisper, startling and sinister. "You are not what you seem." More shadows pressed close, seeping into the edges of her mind, filling her thoughts with doubts. "What did you hide from them? What do you fear?" "I am their mother." The words came out more as a plea than a proclamation. She pushed forward, unwilling to let the shadows sow their seeds of doubt. But as they moved deeper, the reflections grew darker, mirroring terrible moments the day she was too late to protect them, the silence of her grief. Guilt encased her heart like frost, freezing her limbs. "No, I won't give in," she thought, shaking her head violently with every step. The shadows hissed, their breaths an icy draft against her skin. "You cannot outrun your past," they whispered. "Every wrong you have done bleeds into the night." Sprinting, she felt an unexpected resolve. "I refuse to let you claim my family." She cried into the swirling darkness, the phantom figures sneering behind her. She mustered strength and forced her way to the next mirror, intent on showing the truth. As she slammed her palm against the glass, the surface erupted with the chaotic images of their life, a kaleidoscope of real moments, family picnics, sewing lessons, bedtime stories. But a crack split through the center, and the darkness writhed, threatening to pull them under. "Watch closely," the eerie voice called, resonating deep within the chambers of her fears. "See the truth, what you can never change." In that instant, she recognized herself in the very midst of chaos, the comforting smile to her children wrapped in layers of worry. Were they truly safe with her? Was she enough? "Mommy!" her daughter cried, panic rising in her voice, breaking Lisa from the gripping spell. She realized, despite the uncertainty, she had the power to choose, to embrace the darkness or shatter it. Taking a breath, she turned and shoved her entire weight against the glass, pushing through the fear that sought to imprison them. "Together!" she shouted, feeling the warmth of her children's hands gripping hers tightly. The glass quivered, bending beneath their hope. A violent surge of energy snapped through the air as they surged forward, breaking through the mirror's reflection. Crystal shards exploded outward, bathing the dark hall in a flood of shimmering light. Yet even as they broke free, the shadows spiraled into a frenzied rage, swirling into a storm around them. "You think you've escaped?" A voice of pure malice churned, jagged and echoing as they launched forward to envelop her once more. In the chaos, Lisa spotted another glimmer, an unseen door forming amidst the swirling darkness, pulsating like a heartbeat. "There!" she screamed, pushing her children ahead. But would that doorway lead to salvation or further horrors? As they darted toward it, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. They sprinted towards the door, heartbeats matching the frantic rhythm of their steps. As they approached, the door pulsated, a steady beat like a drum urging them on. Yet the shadow screamed behind them, an anguished, deafening chorus that clawed at her ankles, threatening to drag them back down the path of despair. "Faster!" she urged, pushing her children ahead as her own legs felt sluggish. Every second felt like an eternity. The whispers transformed into a crescendo of rage. "You can't escape!" they hissed, seeping into her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like a suffocating bind. A chill gripped her spine. She could hear the shadows snickering now, their laughter a harrowing echo in the hall. Each gust of wind felt like icy fingers trailing from the darkness, searching for a way into her heart. "Mommy!" her daughter cried again, the sharpness of her voice cutting through the chaos, somehow grounding Lisa. Still, the weight of guilt hung over her like a dark cloud. "Not now. We have to go," Lisa shouted, though her own voice trembled. The door loomed closer, but it seemed just out of reach, the darkness warping their surroundings with every inch they gained. As they reached the threshold, Lisa gripped the door's handle, cold as death. It felt familiar yet alien, like being on the precipice of a great unknown. "This is it," she thought, heart racing, a million fears swirling. With one fierce twist, she flung the door open, ready to race into whatever lay beyond. But to her horror, it revealed not freedom, but another chamber, an endless expanse lined with mirrors, darker than before. Each one reflected a grotesque version of reality, visions of loss flickering like a movie gone wrong. Welcome back, the shadows crooned, satisfaction dripping from their tone. You've entered the reflection chamber. Lisa gasped. Their faces morphed in the mirrors, distorted and haunted, mouths twisted in silent screams. The room felt alive, vibrating with energy that pulsed through her veins, making her skin crawl. No! This can't be. A sudden force pushed her and her children back, pinning them against the doorframe, their escape thwarted. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing off any chance of retreat. The shadows began to coalesce, forming into shapes, familiar faces distorting into nightmare. Remember me? The voice was chilling, echoing through the chamber. Lisa froze. It was her own voice, yet twisted and dark. You left. You abandoned us. The shadows danced around them, her own heartache manifesting before her. Stay with me, don't look, she whispered fiercely to her children. But they were already staring into the mirrors, struck still by the harrowing images reflected. Mom! Look! Her son cried, pointing. A mirror showed a scene of tragic sorrow the night she lost her family in an accident she couldn't prevent. Shapes hovered in the reflections, blurry figures of her husband and other kids who never had a chance to escape. No! The veil of despair threatened to choke out her resolve. The reflections morphed again, becoming a series of awful decisions she had made, moments lost or manipulated by fear. When she weakly turned to the others, she saw her children still entranced, faces pale with terror. Stop! She yelled, desperate. Look at me. Don't listen to them. But the shadows wrapped tighter, the whispers frothing into a storm of despair. She could barely hear her own voice over the screams resonating through her mind. Your past binds you forever, the shadows sang, a dark symphony reaching its fever pitch. She felt the icy fingers of hopelessness inching closer to her heart, squeezing, but then she remembered the warmth of her children, the heartbeat of their gripped hands. Together! She roared, her resolve surging through the dark veil that attempted to envelop them. She lunged towards the nearest mirror, the one showing their happiest memory, their family together, laughing in the park. Follow me. Trust our love. She cried, pulling them toward the radiant glow that flickered despite the surrounding gloom. As her fingers touched the cool glass once more, a wave of energy surged, and she knew they had to break free from the haunting images. But would the love be enough to shatter the shadows and light their way through the darkness? In that moment of choice, the mirrors began to ripple violently, threatening to crush them in its depths. The shadows screeched, a cacophony of rage. And then she realized safety and despair were a matter of belief, but what lay beyond certainty. With a deep breath, she hurled herself into the darkness, praying for what would come next. The world shifted in a blinding flash. Lisa felt the ground disappear beneath her feet as she tumbled into the abyss. Time lost meaning, the darkness enveloped her, a suffocating blanket rendering her senses numb. Then, with a sudden jolt, they landed hard on a cold, damp floor. Disoriented, Lisa blinked against the dim light, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Frantically, she looked around, her children sprawled beside her, eyes wide, breathing shallow. Are we safe? Her son whispered, glancing back at the now distant mirrors that still shimmered, reflecting shadows neither of them dared to face. Lisa shook her head, pushing back the panic that threatened to rise again. I don't know, she said, struggling to sound steady. She straightened, pulling her kids to their feet. The air hung heavy with unease, every breath a reminder of the harrowing experience they had just escaped, but the room around them was vast and empty, walls made of the same warped glass as the mirrors. Underfoot, small shards sparkled ominously in the weak light. Stay close, she murmured, holding onto her daughter's hand tightly. As they took hesitant steps forward, Lisa heard a faint scratching sound, like nails on wood. The noise slipped through the silence, amplifying her dread. Where were they? What if the shadows followed them here? Mommy, I don't like it, the girl whimpered. Me neither, her son echoed, his voice barely audible, tinged with fear. Suddenly, Lisa noticed a soft, pulsing glow emanating from the far corner of the room. As they drew closer, the glow morphed into shapes. Shadows danced against the walls, twisting into grotesque forms that mirrored back their deepest fears. Turn back. A voice hissed. It was an eerie blend of her husband's tone and the whispering shadows. "You thought you could escape? You left us." "Don't listen," Lisa urged, but she could see her son's eyes widen in terror. The glow brightened, the shadows swirling in chaos, thickening the air with a rancid odor of decay. In the center of the room stood an enormous mirror, larger than the others, its dark surface undulating like water. It called to her, beckoning with an allure that pulled at her grief. "Look," the shadows crooned, their voices merging into a seductive song. "See your anguish. Embrace it." She fought the urge to step closer, to glance into the depths. "Mom, I feel it too," her daughter sobbed, clutching her arm. Lisa turned to see her children's faces falling into despair, the same haunting images from before flickering across their eyes. "This isn't real," Lisa shouted, her heart racing. She scooped her children close, but the shadows mirrored them, distorting their figures, turning love into fear. "What do we do?" her son asked, tears streaming down his cheeks. "We can't stay here." With a fierce resolve igniting in her chest, Lisa pushed herself to look away from the mirror. "We break this curse. Together." The whispering intensified, taunting them, murmuring their failures and regrets like a ritual chant. "You will not escape this time," they screeched, voices layered with malice. But standing there, the warmth of her children's presence ignited a fire within her. "We can fight!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the darkness. In that instant, she felt the ground tremble, the mirrors vibrating violently as if aware of their defiance. Slow breaths turned into frantic gasps as the chamber fell into chaos. The haunting reflections turned into wild, fearsome beings clawing at the edges of reality. As if summoned, a massive hand reached from the mirror, breaking the fragile boundary between fear and reality. Lisa's heart sank. It was the promise of her greatest regret coming to life, pulling them into its depths. "Now!" she cried, instinctively backing away, dragging her kids with her. "We have to run." But just as the shadows lunged, the floor beneath them split wide. A dark void opened wide, a howling abyss that beckoned them to jump. "Trust me," she shouted, gripping her children's hands fiercely. With no choice left, they leapt into the darkness, heat and cold. Mingling like a battle for their souls as the shadows screeched in frustration, the world twisted and blurred around them, a chaotic whirlpool of sound and sensation. Would they find what lay waiting at the bottom? Or would it lead them deeper into despair? The wild plunge continued, and what would await them on the other side? They fell, gasping, into a void thick with darkness. Lisa held her children's hands tightly, a fragile connection tethering them to sanity as they plummeted through terror. The silence enveloped them, broken only by the rush of wind that sliced through their frantic thoughts. Then, the descent suddenly halted. They crashed onto a hard surface, limbs sprawled awkwardly but miraculously unhurt. Shaking off dizziness, Lisa blinked into the dim light. Here, the air felt different, almost alive, teeming with a palpable malice. "Mom," her son's voice trembled. "Where are we?" "I don't know, but we have to keep moving," she managed, her voice feeling hollow. Each breath felt laced with an unseen weight, pushing against her chest, making her heart race with dread. They stood in a cavernous space, walls pulsating with a sickly green glow. Shadows took form, swirling and whispering, feeding off their despair. The children hugged close to her, their presence barely a comfort against the surrounding threat. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Lisa spotted figures emerging from the shadows. Eeny, meeny, miny, more ghostly figures, all warped and twisted, jostling for attention. They wore faces of loved ones lost, each one contorted into a mask of sorrow and betrayal. The darkness whispered secrets that clawed at her mind, spraying doubt like shards underfoot. "Do you see them?" A voice, sweet yet sinister, slithered into her thoughts. "Those you abandoned, those you failed, no," she shouted, shaking her head. "You're not real." But the face of her husband, his soft smile a gaping, twisted frown haunted her. It loomed closer, its eyes deepening into voids. "You left us," Lisa, it echoed, a hauntingly familiar melody laced with grief, "and now you will pay." "Run!" she screamed, yanking her children towards a passage that yawned open to the side. The shadows laughed, the cacophony rising, threatening to drown her out. With every hurried step, the shadows lunged, reaching out like claws, brushing against her skin. It felt cold, biting, and seeping into her bones. She pushed her children ahead, their faith in her fueled her strength. The tunnel twisted, narrowing, each curve tightening around them as if the very darkness were alive, intent on swallowing them whole. The whispers intensified, overwhelming her, each syllable digging into her mind, pulling her apart. You will never leave, you will suffer forever. A glimmer caught her eye. At the end of the tunnel, a faint light appeared, flickering like a distant flame. Hope surged within her as she propelled her children forward. We're almost there. Just a bit more. But just as they approached the light, the ground trembled violently. The tunnel groaned, and a wall of darkness shot up behind them, an impenetrable barrier of shadow that chased them relentlessly. Faster! Lisa urged, pushing her children onward, her own legs burning as panic enlivened her senses. She could feel them closing in, their breath on her neck, their whispers intoxicating hers with dread and despair. Bursting out into the light, they stumbled into a vast chamber filled with mirrors, each one reflecting haunting images of their past. Lisa's breath caught as her own reflection stood tall, but the eyes, those were wrong. Hollow, filled with darkness, mocking her every move. Mommy? Her daughter's voice cracked, wavering as dread seeped back in. The mirrors surrounded them with sinister glee, mocking their fears. Look away. Don't listen. Lisa implored, wrapping her arms around her children in a fierce embrace, but even through her panic, she could feel the pull of the glass. Embrace who you are. The reflections beckoned. All your failures come, let us show you. No, she insisted. We will not fall for this. But deep down, she felt their power, the overwhelming urge to give in. What if it was true? Would it hurt so much to surrender? She peered into the nearest mirror. What stared back was her deepest regret, a moment of silence, the weight of lost choices. It felt real, so painfully real. Behind her, a sound, like glass shattering, broke her trance. The wall of darkness broke apart, spilling its shadows into the chamber. You cannot escape. They screamed, a unified roar of anguish. Run now! Lisa bellowed, shoving her children back. We have to find a way out. As they raced through the maze of mirrors, a new sensation gnawed at her. Time spun around them, twisting and curling like the smoke of last year's bonfire. Each second felt excruciatingly slow, yet alive with terror as their reflections moved independently, twisting into grotesque versions of themselves. They had to escape. They had to, and just as Lisa caught sight of an exit shimmering at the far end, she felt the ground once again splinter beneath her feet. Jump! She cried, but the chamber was consumed in shadows, and the shrieking of lost souls filled the air. As they leaped toward that flickering light of hope, the reflective surface rippled, and they were no longer sure where the reflections ended and reality began. What awaited them in that light? Would it bring salvation or doom? As Lisa and her children fell toward the unknown, the last thing she heard was the chilling echo of familiar voices trailing behind them. Come back. What had they left behind? They landed, tumbling onto a floor that felt solid but pulsed like a heartbeat. The light flickered around them, casting long, looming shadows that danced wickedly across their path. Lisa scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding in rhythm with the thrum beneath them. Where are we now? Her son whispered, his voice trembling like a fragile branch about to snap. Stay close. We have to. She felt the words slip away as she turned. The chamber was lined with mirrors, but these weren't ordinary reflections. They shimmered with a faint crimson hue, distorting everything they showed. Each glass pane seemed to breathe, drawing air from the dark, collective sorrow around them. The children were frantic, they could sense the danger thickening in the air. Lisa grabbed their hands, leading them forward, but a sharp whisper echoed around them, teasing at the edges of her sanity. Look, see what lies within. No! She cried, clutching her children tighter as a chilling breeze swept through the room. The mirrors began to ripple, showing each of their worst fears, their deepest shames. Lisa caught a glimpse of herself, a mother lost and alone, failing to protect her children. Mommy, don't look! Her daughter screamed, but Lisa was already caught in the horror of the sight. Each reflection stretched and contorted, revealing her past, every noise she had ignored, every moment she had considered giving up. Turn away. She howled, forcing her gaze from the reflections. She could feel the glass pulling at her thoughts, tugging them into the murky void. Then, behind her, she heard shadows shift and grow. They writhed like serpents, hungry to consume. Panic clawed at her chest. They were trapped, surrounded by the essence of despair. "Keep moving!" Lisa shouted, dragging her children onward. The chamber whirled around them, disorienting. Each mirror felt like a gateway to nightmares past. Suddenly, the glass shattered, exploding outward in a cacophony of noise. Fragments of reflective shards twinkled menacingly as they fell, covering the ground in sparkling danger. Lisa pushed the children forward, their screams mixing with the shattering sound echoing maliciously in the space. As they fled deeper into the chamber, Lisa felt an unyielding pull, a magnetic force dragging at her, urging her to look back, to surrender to the whispered promises that beckoned her. Each reflection flickered with images of what could have been, what should have been. "Mom, I'm scared," her son cried, tight with fear and confusion. "Stay with me. We have to keep going." The words fumbled out, desperate and raw. But the intensity around her grew, thickening the air, wrapping around them like a predatory embrace. Ahead, a glowing doorway pulsed gently, but a wave of shadows surged in from the corners, emboldened by her children's fears. They whispered in unison, "You will never leave, your choices will haunt you forever." The children trembled, shadows molding their tiny bodies, pulling them closer to the darkness. Lisa moved, feelings of anguish clawing at her heart. "Don't let go." But just as she reached for the door, the whispers shifted, transforming into desperate cries of agony. Conflicted, Lisa hesitated. The door held promise, but the shadows throbbed with raw, pulsating energy, hinting at unbearable truths waiting to reveal themselves. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice sliced through the tumult, snapping her back to the moment. With one last look back, Lisa pushed through the glowing frame, dragging her children to the other side. But as they stepped into the light, a scream echoed, a forgotten plea trailing back into the darkness behind them. "No! Wait! Come back!" Lisa halted, dread creeping into her veins. What had they escaped? Did they truly leave the horrors behind? And before she could process the weight of her choices, the ground beneath them shifted again, a rumble signaling something terrible was on the move. The exit flickered ominously, threatening to close, while shadows coiled tightly around her ankles, leading her mind to a place where hope wouldn't dare follow. What new horrors awaited just beyond that threshold? Would they emerge intact or something less than human? Lisa felt the room shift beneath her feet, vibrations coursing through the ground like an approaching storm. Her heart raced as she pulled her children closer, their fear mingling with her own. Shadows loomed, twisting and writhing with dark intentions, every flicker of their forms reassuring her that no matter how far they had run, the abyss still hungered. "Mommy, it's getting darker." Her son's voice quivered as if fear were a tangible weight heavy in the air. "We'll be okay," she breathed, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. "We just need to keep moving." They pressed forward, their breaths heavy and shallow as they approached the ominous glowing doorway. It flickered, illuminating harsh reminders of past doubts, memories tearing at the fabric of her soul. Each reflection taunted her with echoes of failures and regrets. Wasn't this her doing? Those were her shadows, remnants of choices she had tried so hard to bury. "Hold on tight," she urged, unwilling to let her moment of fragility show. She could feel the weight of her children's trust, soft and innocent, as they clung tightly to her sides. "Mommy! There's something behind us!" Her daughter screamed, pointing frantically. With the shadows gaining ground, Lisa pushed through the door. She had to believe there was freedom on the other side, hope beyond the darkness. But as they entered, everything turned white. The blinding light enveloped them, and for a moment, she felt her chest lighten, the suffocating weight of despair fading. Yet just as quickly, the fear crept back in, clawing its way up her spine. "Where are we?" her son asked. "Home," she whispered, closing her eyes tight. "We're home." But when she opened them again, they weren't in the warm embrace of her house. An empty void surrounded them, the familiar fading into vague memories. The reflections of her children danced within the white expanse. They were laughing, but she could see the shadows twisting just behind them, a reminder of the suffering they had encountered. "Stay close!" she shouted, but the shadows snatched at them, their tendrils stretching like dark fingers intent on pulling Lisa's children into a void. The sight wrapped fear tightly around her chest, squeezing until she felt breathless. "No! Not again!" Lisa screamed, panic consuming her. She fought the darkness, trying to infiltrate her mind, suppressing the shame and regrets surfacing in the relentless tide. "You are with me. You are safe." With courage fueling her defiance, she thought of the good memories, their laughter filling the air, family adventures overflowing with joy, bedtime stories that carried love. "We will not succumb to fear," she declared, drawing strength from those memories, channeling them like a lifeline. "Mommy!" her children cried, their voices matching her resolve. "Together," she said, gripping their hands tighter. "Stay with me." They moved as one, her heart beating strong against the chaos swirling around them. With every step, shadows clawed at their ankles, whispering doubt and despair. "You're not strong enough," they hissed, but Lisa fought against their lies, pushing deeper into the light. Underneath the suffocating fear, her resolve grew brighter. Finally, they reached a massive wall, something solid and immovable. Lisa pressed her hands against it, the weight of her love felt profound, a promise to keep her children safe. They looked up at her, their eyes wide with trust. With a decisive breath, she threw her weight against the door, and it broke open. Not as they tumbled through, the darkness shrieked, a chorus of anguish rising behind them. "You cannot escape." But they were through, and the light enveloped them in its warm embrace, shadows receding to a distance they could finally breathe without fear. They landed softly on grass, the familiar scent of home wrapping around them like a cherished blanket. The shimmering sunlight danced above, illuminating their sanctuary. Lisa blinked. Was it real? "Mommy, we made it!" her son cried, looking around in awe. The neighborhood spread before them, vibrant and full of life. Children played, laughter echoed a welcome symphony she thought she might never hear again, yet something nagged at the back of her mind, a weight still present. The mirror had shown her everything, the grief, the shadows, the haunting memories. But they were not chains to bind her. They were echoes of her past to remind her of what was worth fighting for. "Can we go home?" her daughter asked softly. Elisa knelt down to look them in the eye. "This is our home. We are safe now." Hope bloomed within her chest. They were free, reunited. No longer trapped in the relentless pull of despair. As they began to walk back toward their house, she took one last glance back. The shadows had receded, transformed into whispers of memories, nothing more than reflections of what had been. She breathed in deeply. No longer haunted, just echoes of strength. Together, they stepped toward the future, bound by love, filled with hope, ready to face whatever life held next without the shadows. Home was simply where love thrived within her, and with her children nestled safely by her side, and there, beneath the golden sun, Lisa found peace. Thank you for following along on this journey. Do you want to hear more stories like this? If you loved this tale and want to see what happens next, you need to subscribe immediately. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this content rolling. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Let's talk about what just happened. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything to us. Join the family now.